Look, this is a scary time in the community. We're hearing today already about hundreds of people being arrested by ICE and deported around the country. And I want the Pakistani community and all our communities to know that I have their backs, that New York City has their backs. New York is an amazing city because of communities like the Pakistani community. Here I am eating the food, delicious, the hard work, people working in construction, people working in healthcare, people working in home care, becoming leaders in our neighborhood. And we're not going to let Donald Trump change that. And I'm committed right now as New York City Comptroller, but I'm running for mayor to make sure the city protects its people, but also help solve their problems. Right now, we got housing prices through the roof. The childcare is expensive. Our contractors aren't getting paid on time. And I'm fighting to make sure it's a government that shows up for the Pakistani community and all our communities, and people can count on me. We have laws in New York City, and the law in New York City is that if you commit a crime, okay, if you commit a violent crime, if you're a murderer or a rapist then of course New York City will cooperate, because then you get arrested, you go to prison, and you can't stay here. But most of our families have not committed any crimes. We're talking about parents and grandparents and children in our public schools, and we have a law that says they have to be safe, that we don't let ICE come into the schools, we don't let ICE come into our hospitals. People need to have confidence that they could go talk to a police officer and report a crime if they see it. So, look, we get money from the federal government. It's true, but this is New York City. Our budget is about $115 billion. The federal government gives us every year 8, 9, 10 billion. That's a lot of money, but it's less than 10% of our budget. So we have to be creative and find ways, again, to follow the law and make sure that, we're keeping people safe. But keeping people safe means not rounding people up, but protecting our neighbors who built this city. And I'm disappointed in our current mayor for going down to Mar-a-Lago, for going to the inauguration, for saying to Trump, okay, do what you want here. That is not, we have the Statue of Liberty in the harbor, and that's because we stand up for our immigrant communities, and that is what I plan to do. Look, I'm not going to wait to become mayor. We convene people in our office as soon as Trump was elected, business leaders, because don't forget, this is not good for business either. If you're operating a restaurant, who is doing the preparation of the food? Who's doing the cleaning? If you have a delivery business, like everyone in New York is getting their food delivered, who do you think is delivering the food? The work of the city in construction, in restaurants, in childcare, in home care, in our hospitals. Immigrants, many of them Pakistani, many from other places as well, of course, but we can't survive. I mean, it's estimated that about 50% of New York City's households are either immigrants or have immigrant immediate, children or parents. So that's what the city is, and I'm standing up for people now, and as mayor, I'll continue to do so. Because those are who are in our schools, those are who are teaching our kids, those are who are keeping us safe. And my plan will be New York has a lot to do to solve problems. Let's be clear. We need to make the housing more affordable. We need to keep people safe. We have to do something about people who are sleeping on the subway or the streets and are mentally ill. But if we fix our problems here, and we stand up for our immigrant communities, this will be a great place. When we say it's a sanctuary city, what we partly mean is we want the best people to come here and feel safe. And I think that's why we flourish. I mean, I do want to be clear that, the city government can only do so. The city government can say, no, ICE, you can't come in our schools. No, ICE, you can't come in our hospitals. No, ICE, you can't come in our homeless shelters. Now, it can say, no, ICE, you can't be outside on the sidewalk waiting for someone. The city can't do anything about that. But what I think we should say to them is, look, if you have someone who has committed a crime, ICE, if you are looking for someone who's committed a violent crime, you tell us, you give us their name, and we'll investigate the crime. If they've committed the crime, they'll be in prison or jail. If they're in prison or jail and they're not here appropriately, okay, now ICE and the city can cooperate. But if you're looking at people who have not committed any crime, who are just in this country trying to feed their families, then we can't collaborate with you. And then we can say to those people, look, we're going to do what we can to keep you safe. Obviously they might have to make decisions about what they want to do individually. I was hearing you guys were telling me a story about someone who came here from Chicago because they're afraid they're not going to be safe. So the best thing we can do is help people be self-sufficient. It's like the people who are in our shelters, the best is to help them get jobs so that they can move out of the shelters and they won't be targets from ICE because they'll be out in communities. And that's one thing we should have been doing for the last 2 years, having people in our shelters. It's nice to give people a place to sleep and food to eat, but now they're vulnerable because ICE knows where they are. And what we really need to do is help them get jobs, move out on their own so that they're not right in harm's way. I'm proud to be a person with a track record of being honest, of just being the hardest worker, and of getting things done for people. If you look, one of the things I did when I was in the city council was get a lot of affordable housing built around the Gowanus Canal. Go look right now. You can see it. It's going up. You can go online and see that the prices are affordable to people. I got money for our schools. I showed up for our immigrant communities. I helped bring this thing called participatory budgeting to New York City. I got resources for public housing residents. I protected homeowners. So I have a track record of actually delivering on public safety in our neighborhoods, on affordable housing, on good jobs and protections for workers. And I do it without the drama. I have to tell you, with Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo, there's a lot of drama. And I'm kind of a no drama, get the stuff done, deliver for the people, be honest, fight hard, work hard, and deliver for your neighborhood. So if that's what people want, and I think that's a lot like the Pakistani community from what I have had the good chance to see. And that's the kind of mayor that I want to be for people. So first, I should say, right now I'm the highest ranking Jewish New Yorker in city office, but I believe that the safety, the destiny, the affordability, the ability to live here in New York City of Muslim New Yorkers and Jewish New Yorkers is bound up together. I was proud to be the first Jewish elected official in New York City to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. Of course, I want to see the Israeli hostages go home to their families, so I'm glad that finally happened. But I started calling for it over a year ago, just a few weeks after the war started, and I've long been calling for the end of the occupation of Palestinian territories. We just had Martin Luther King Day, and Dr. King supported Israel's existence as a Jewish and democratic state, but he knew in 1967 that Israel was going to have to give the territories back because there's no way to have Israeli safety until there's Palestinian freedom, and there's no way to have Palestinian safety until Israel can live safe and side by side. And I believe the same thing here. New York has been a great city for Jewish New Yorkers. It is a great city for Muslim New Yorkers. What a beautiful Muslim city. So as the Jewish mayor, I will be the best friend of Muslim communities, and inshallah, we'll have the opportunity to pray together. Actually, I'll say one more thing here because I learned a great surah. I went to the Jamaica Muslim Center, and this young woman, third grader, taught me Surah Ikhlas. And she chanted it. I'm trying to remember now how it goes. Ahad, Kul hu Allahu Ahad. And I was like, wait, Ahad, that's God is one. We have the same prayer. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. And Echad and Ahad means God is one, and Muslims and Jews are one, and in New York City, that's what we need. Right now, crime in New York, especially violent crime, is about 30% higher than it was before the pandemic. Now, it went way up, and it has come down since the peak in 2021, but it's still 30% higher than it was before the pandemic. So people don't feel safe, even though crime has come down from last year. And the thing is, what can we do to make people both be safe and feel safe? So one thing I'm focused on is we have this problem with people who are homeless and mentally ill in the subways, sometimes in these horrible incidents that we've seen. I just put out a plan that will let us end street homelessness for people with serious mental illness in New York City by reaching out and connecting them to small housing units that we have called SROs, or single room occupancy. And when we looked around the country, what's working, and we found in Salt Lake City, Denver, and Houston, they have a model that gets people off the street into housing, and it works 70 to 90% of the time to take people who are homeless and mentally ill and get them into housing with services. And then they're not sleeping on the subways, a danger to themselves and to subway riders. So I'm going to bring that to New York City. I got a day one plan ready, and we can solve this problem, and that'll make it a safer city for everyone. New Yorkers rely on the NYPD and on our police officers to keep us safe. We're lucky to have about 2,000 Pakistani police officers, Muslim police officers more broadly. We're lucky to have about 2,000 Muslim officers on the force, many of them Pakistani and of course other nationalities. But this is a frightening time. You know, Donald Trump, by pardoning the January 6th people, is saying we don't care about the safety of our local elected officials. And one of the reasons we want to have a sanctuary city is we need people to feel comfortable coming to the police and saying, I'm a victim of domestic violence, or I saw a shooter. So I have a long history of working with the NYPD. When I was a city council member, as the controller, I'm the investor for the NYPD pension funds, and I make sure every officer has their pension funds. I have a great new idea to make it possible for police officers to buy homes in New York City by co-investing the pension fund. So if a police officer can afford like a $400,000 mortgage, the pension fund would invest the other $400,000, and now you could buy a home, and a police officer could live in their neighborhood, even though the price of housing is high. We have to keep the relationship between NYPD and community members strong. It's got to be fair. People have to know they're going to be treated fairly, and when there's a problem, there's somebody they can go to. And they also have to know they'll be safe, and that's what the NYPD is looking out for. And there's a mayor who's going to hold them accountable to do that.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.